Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 492 for the 7th of Nissan in a regular year. And today we are beginning a new chapter, chapter 39. And the topic of today's episode, is going to be angels. And specifically, comparing angels to animals and exploring the somewhat curious phenomenon whereby angels are actually described as animals. They're given the title of animals often in biblical literature. So, for example, and this is the example that the Alter Rebbe brings at the very, very beginning of this section, in the vision of Yechezkel, of the prophet Yechezkel, he describes the angels that he sees as being animals. So he sees the face of a lion to the right, he sees the face of an ox to the left, and there's different animals, images of animals that he sees that are actually, this is what he sees when he sees angels. So what we're going to be coming to understand through this study of angels and animals and all of that is the contrast to humans, and is coming to understand what it is that makes humans, us as humanity, specifically as Jews, what makes us really unique. And to put this in the context of what we've been talking about, so the Alter Rebbe begins this chapter referring to the previous chapter, chapter 38, where we left off from last time. And please, as always, go catch up if you haven't already, to be in the same place as the rest of us. And so what we've been talking about so far, and in the last chapter, was we ended off talking about this idea of different types of intention in terms of serving God, and how some types of intention can be more intellectually born. So we can develop an intellectual appreciation of God that will lead to this emotional feelings of emotion. So it's like emotions and feelings towards God that are born out of intellect. And then we talked about a different type of intention, which is more about tapping into our innate feelings of love and fear of God. And we contrasted these two things, and we talked about how the first one, the former, talking about the intellectual birthing of the emotions, is likened to the level of man, of human, versus the type of intention which is more tapping into our innate intention is on the level of an animal. So now the Alter Rebbe begins chapter 39, and he says, with all of this in mind, we can also come to understand why it is that the angels are called beasts and animals. As we see in the vision of Yechezkel, which I just referred to before, where he talks about how he sees the image of a lion and the image to the right, and an image of an ox to the left. This is in Yechezkel chapter 1, verse 10, for anybody who wants to look that up. So why are angels likened to animals? This is because angels, like animals, do not have choice, do not have free will. And so thus their fear and love of God, which they do have, is an innate, natural one. And the Alter Rebbe says that this can be found, he's citing Rav Nehemna, Parshas Pinchas. And so then, thus, with this in mind, that the angels are likened to animals because of this lack of free will, then when we look at Tzaddikim, we see that righteous people, their level is greater than them. Why? So how does this play out? And now we're going to look at a little bit of spiritual geography here to understand this. So the dwelling place of the souls of Tzaddikim, of the righteous people, is in the world of Bria, it's called. Whereas the dwelling place of the angels is in the world of Yetzirah, it is called. So I've mentioned this before, but just to recap this again, give a little spiritual map. So in general, and things do get a little bit more complicated the deeper you get into this kind of stuff. But as a general, for our purposes right now, in general, there are 4 basic worlds or realms, so to speak. And each of these 4 worlds or realms can be thought of as different levels of manifestations of God's creation. So the best explanation that, in my opinion, for these 4 worlds, which actually really helped me and really stuck with me when I first learned about them, is actually when we think about them as being parables for the process of birth, which they kind of are in a way, because really creation can be thought of as a type of birth of God's giving birth to creation. So I'll explain this process of birth through the explanation of these 4 worlds. So hopefully to make it a little bit more comprehensible and also hopefully more memorable too. So it's not like these random Hebrew words that I'm throwing at you and just kind of random material, which I know can be tough to memorize. So the highest of all the worlds is the world of Atzilus. Atzilus is, or in modern day Hebrew, Atzilut, it's usually translated to mean the world of emanation. So this is the world which is the highest of all the worlds because it is really one with God. There's no, it's a funny kind of world because it's like the word world in Hebrew. The word for world is olam, which kind of has this like dualistic meaning because it, on the one hand, it means world, which means that it's like this manifestation of a thing. On the other hand, it comes from the root of he'elim, which means to concealment, because each world conceals God within it to a different degree. Now, the world of Atzilus, which is this highest world, is funny in that sense because it doesn't actually conceal God. It's really one with God, and it really can be thought of more as like an emanation rather than just a creation of God. In birth, this level parallels the potential for the child to be born. So it's like the child has not even been conceived yet. So there's no actual embryo, there's no seed, really, there's nothing. It's just the potential for the child to be born inside of the parents, basically. Then we have the world of Bria. This is the second of the 4 worlds. The second world is called Bria. This literally is translated to mean creation. So in the process of birth, this can be thought of to mean as the conception of the child. But it's not yet, formed into any kind of embryo, or it's not growing or anything. It's like that moment of conception. Then there's the world of Yetzirah, which is translated to mean formation. And this is the process of literally the formation and development of the child in that parable, or in the parallel of the child being born. And then the last of the 4 worlds is that world of Asiya, which literally means action, the world of action. And this is the actual birth of the child. And this is where our physical world resides, in this world of action. So that's just a brief overview of these 4 worlds. And now let's get back into the text. So going back here, and what we just learned about here is we were talking about how Tzaddikim, how righteous people are higher than angels, because we said that righteous people, their dwelling place is in the world of Bria, which if you've been taking notes, you'll remember Bria is the world of creation. Remember that world of conception, versus the dwelling place of the Malachim, of the angels, is in the world of Yetzirah, formation, that world where the development of the child is born, so to speak. Now here the Alter Rebbe brings a little footnote, and he says that he gives like a little caveat to this, and he says, we're talking here about stam malachim, like basic malachim, but there are higher angels, there are higher supernal angels that do reside in the world of Bria, where their service is in a way of love and fear that is more intellectual, as is written in Ramahemna, where it talks about how there are 2 types of chayot. Chayot is a type of angel, holy chayot, that there's the natural, the chayos hakadosh, which are tiviim, and then there's the chayos hakadosh, which are sichlim, as is written there more in the Eitz Chaim. So it's a little footnote here that the Alter Rebbe is saying it's not so cut and dry that the angels are here and the souls are there, but for the purposes of our text today and the section we're learning about today, the Alter Rebbe really wants to focus on this idea that in general, the souls of Tzaddikim, their dwelling place is in the world of Bria, this higher world, versus the dwelling place of the angels is in the world of Yetzirah, which is a lower world. And then he says that the difference between them is that in the world of Yetzirah, in this world, God's midos shine. So what are God's midos? God's emotions shine. So if you remember again that map, so there's a lot of like maps in Chassidus and Kabbalah that it might be useful as we're learning this text, if you're not so familiar with this, to maybe keep like a map in a notebook of these kind of things, that there's a map. So there's the intellectual attributes, and then there's the emotive attributes. So the emotive attributes, there's 7 emotive attributes. So these 7 emotive attributes, this is the realm for this is in the realm of Yetzirah. And so when we talk about the emotive attributes of God, which here the Alter Rebbe lists the first 2, and often this is the case, even though there's 7 of them, often just the first 2 are listed, and then it says etc. Because really these first 2 emotions, these first 2 emotive attributes really are like the primary attributes from which all other emotions stem out of. So the first one is love, so loving God. And the second one is fearing or having awe of God, etc. And the Alter Rebbe says that it's written about this in the Tikkunim and in the Eitz Chaim, which are Kabbalistic books. And in this Tikkunim and the Eitz Chaim, it talks about how there are 6 attributes that nest in Yetzirah. So you might have an obvious question. Didn't we say that there are 7 emotive attributes and not 6? So briefly, the 7th of the emotive attributes is what's known to be Malchus, which it translates to mean sovereignty. And it's kind of on another level. It's not exactly an emotion. It's more like a manifestation of the other 6. So the realm for that 7th one is actually lower down in our world, in the world of Asiya. So the world of Yetzirah is really the realm of the 6 emotive attributes. And so then the Alter Rebbe says that this is the service of the angels all day long. They always stand in fear and awe of God. So we have the camp of the angel Gavriel on the left side, which is like the side of Gvura and more fear and awe and that kind of thing. And then we have the camp of Michal, which is the camp of love. And they both stand there. So that's the angels. That's what they do all day long. They stand in this world and they have love and fear of God that they express. However, in the world of Bria, this is no longer, now we've stepped up a level. We're not in this realm of the emotive attributes anymore. Now we're in the level of the intellectual attributes, which again, if you've been following the podcast so far, then the intellectual attributes are Chochmah, Bina, and Das. So it's God's wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, which are the source of these emotive attributes. And the mother for all of them, like they're the root of all of them, as is written about in the Tikkunim. And the Alter Rebbe here cites a poetic citation from the Tikkunei Zohar here. It's a Kabbalistic book from Tikkun 6, which says that the supernal mother, I'm not going to attempt to say this in the Aramaic. My Aramaic is definitely not as good as my Hebrew. So in English, it translates to mean that the supernal mother, the Ima Ila'a, nests in the throne. Meaning, what is the throne? The throne is the world of Bria. So meaning to say what this is referring to is the fact that this supernal mother is nesting in the world of Bria, and that's what gives birth. That supernal mother gives birth to the emotive attributes which are manifest in the world of Yetzirah. And so this is why, explains the Alter Rebbe, this world of Bria is the dwelling place for the souls of the Tzaddikim, who serve God out of love and fear that come out of the intellect and out of understanding of the greatness of God. So remember yesterday we talked about that, about how really the highest level of serving God is through the mind, is through beginning and cultivating this awareness of God through the minds that leads to this ultimate love and fear that is birthed in the heart. And this type of love, says the Alter Rebbe, is called Re'uta de Liba, which literally translates to mean the heart's desire. So it's like a very deep longing in the heart. And out of this Re'uta de Liba, out of this great love, this creates a vestment, a garment for the soul in the world of Bria when it is in heaven above, in Gan Eden. It's the supernal Gan Eden. So basically, we have the Tzaddikim down here, very righteous people, and throughout their lives, they're cultivating this intellectual awareness of God. And through that intellectual awareness, this births this really tremendous love. This tremendous love is referred to as Re'uta de Liba. And then out of this love, out of this Re'uta de Liba, are formed the garments for the soul in the next world, in Gan Eden Ha'ilyon, in the supernal Gan Eden, as will be explained further on, and as is also written about in the Zohar, in the Parsha of Vayakhel. So that's the end of this section for today. So to summarize, now we can understand why it is that angels are often referred to as animals, especially certain types of angels, which are called Chayot. And this is because these particular angels, which are likened to animals, reside in the world of Yetzirah, which is the world of the emotions. And just like animals, which are all about their emotions, all about their instincts, that's how they live their life. That's how they go about anything, is their emotions based. This is the service of the angels on this level in the world of Yetzirah, is that they serve God out of an emotional, innate type of love and fear of God. And this is in contrast to the world of Bria, which is the residence of Tzaddikim, which is one step higher, insofar that it is the residence of the intellect, the Chabad, the Chochmah Bina Das, which gives birth to the emotions. And, going back to what we've been learning is that there's two basic ways of connecting to God in terms of love and fear. One is through an innate love and fear of God, which is more emotion-based, so that would be more connected to the world of Yetzirah. And then there's a way of connecting to God also through love and fear, but it's a love and fear that's not innate, but it's generated through our emotions, and that's connected to the world of Bria. So that's it for today, and we're going to continue with this chapter tomorrow, so stay tuned, and I will speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.